Hello everyone, Cat Goblin and Martin here, and once again I'm back playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag. It's a really awesome game, and there's a lot that you can do, but its DLC offers even more excitement, as well as new enemies you must face before you assassinate your main target. Last time I talked about the enemies in the regular game, so today I'll be showcasing all the enemies in the Aveline and Freedom Cry DLC. This is basically a part 2 enemy review. Since I already talked about the units and AI in the last one, I won't bore you guys by repeating all that again. So if you missed that, you can always watch the last video. And yeah, let's get straight to it. First, let's start with the Aveline DLC, and the only faction you fight against is the American Continental Army. The Americans wear the signature blue coats, and when looking at them, they're just the same units from Assassin's Creed 3, although the swordsman looks like the American officer. Luckily, he doesn't have the same strength from AC3, so you can take him down quite easily. The brutes wearing brown uniforms and the agiles are still the same units from AC3, and they made the marksmen the sharpshooter slash conscript. You know, the guys with the really cool hats. Surprisingly, the Americans are missing a captain unit. Well, I guess you have Edmund Judge to fill that spot, and the Americans are absolutely broke. I mean, the story does take place in 1784 after the Revolution, and as you know, the Americans paid their taxes to Britain, France wanted some money, and Congress didn't have enough money to pay their soldiers. But jokes aside, Aveline doesn't really need money because there's no shops. Ammunition is all you need, and also, she's already rich. She inherited her father's business in liberation. Moving on, we have the Freedom Cry DLC with 5 factions. Let's start with the Overseers. The Overseers are French thugs that watch over and punish slaves. You can find them in Port-au-Prince, Tortuga, Wellington, Montez, and on board slave, pirate hunter, and pirate ships. The regular swordsman looks very similar to the smuggler marksman from Black Flag, except for he has a red bandana and a pair of boots. Some of these guys can wield daggers, branding iron staffs, and a wooden baton, which you can't steal by the way. You can also spot African American Overseers. These guys are free men who carry out the ruthless bidding of their master. I try to avoid killing these guys at all costs. Agiles wear vest jackets, and some of them can carry sword, which you see them use on plantations or chasing runaway slaves. Captains look like the smuggler captain, but are wearing brown instead. The marksmen look pretty rough, and this faction's brute functions differently. He bears a resemblance to the smuggler brute, though in the game they are referred to as jailers, thugs that look out for runaway slaves. They have their own unique icon on the minimap with a yellow suspicion circle around. If you're in their sight, they'll get mad and will call for help, which means that all the enemies will attack you. Oh, and in lifting the veil, there's this one captain that will hit you if you fall out of line.
Fall in line. Attaquez de côté. Ensemble, les gars. Impatient de dégourdir les jambes. C'est censé m'impressionner.
Another thing about the Overseers is that there's a few that you must defeat before you can liberate the slaves. So there's this guy with the key, right? So defeat him and you can unlock the cage to free all the slaves. Then there's the guy holding the auction. Well, sure, you could pay him money and free the slaves that way, but why give this guy money when you can just beat him up and then free the slaves for free? The second faction is the French army, the game's main bad guys, and you see them a lot in Port-au-Prince and obviously on board French ships. There's two things that are pretty weird though. So the British own Wellington and British Tortuga, and Spain has Montez, right? Well, if you go to those plantations, you'll find that they have French whitecoats on them. French overseers are already odd as it is, but this is just too weird. Britain's arch nemesis is on two of their islands, and yeah, both will fight each other in naval combat. Also, two of the French ships have completely wrong flags. The gunboat has the Spanish flag and Leon symbol, while the brig does have the fleur-de-lis on it. It also has a British Red Cross on its sail with a Portuguese flag. Yeah, kinda odd, but I think it's pretty funny. Anyways, looking at the French, their uniforms bear a close resemblance to the British and Spanish uniforms from Black Flag. The Agiles and Captains both wear blue coats with unique hats. The Swordsman and Brute also wear a different tricorn. Since you see the French next to the Overseers, both factions will fight alongside each other to take you and your allies down. A few things to mention is that the Guardians from Black Flag don't carry reels, instead all they have is ammunition for sleep and berserk darts. Forgot to mention that one in the last video. Now Freedom Cry has a few differences with Black Flag. So first is that Agiles do not carry up to 25 reels, but instead hold 15 like any other unit. Sometimes when you hop onto an enemy ship by yourself, enemy units will not have reels in their pockets. This is always a thing for the British. A few marksmen will stand in place if they hear gunfire from one of their comrades, which is something they don't really do. Normally they're supposed to patrol all around their post. I also noticed that the Agiles seem to attack much faster after you block their first strike. And lastly, brutes in Port-au-Prince don't use their grenades, but out in the Caribbean they do. On to the Pirate Hunters, who are only found in Pirate Hunter ships, obviously. You would think that all the units are Overseers, but only 3 of them are, that being the Captain, Agile, and Brute. The Swordsmen are still the same smugglers you see in Black Flag, and yeah, you can also spot them on civilian fishing ships. And interestingly enough, the Marksman is an Overseer Swordsman. You can also catch a glimpse of these guys on board the pirate ships in Memory 7. Next, we have the Spanish army. This time they're not your main antagonists, and you can find them on Spanish ships of course, as well as Cumberland Bay. The Spanish units look completely different from their Black Flag counterparts, aside from the swordsmen and marksmen. You can see that the captains, brutes, and agiles uniform closely resemble the British uniforms with the long coats and shoulder capes. I think their new design looks cool, plus we now know what happened with the old army. And our last faction is of course the British Army, in all their glory, and you can only see them on board British vessels. Like the Spanish, the British are not the main villains. Both factions sort of act as a police in the Caribbean Sea. Also during this time period, the British did have their own Maroon Rebellion called the First Maroon War, which basically ended in a stalemate, and it's too bad we can't visit Kingston, like, it's just right there around the corner. Anyways, the British uniforms look slightly altered apart from the captain and swordsman. The brutes have the white military stockings over their boots. The marksmen have some white details and sleeves instead of dark blue ones, and the agiles are wearing short red stockings. I really like the altered uniforms, and yes, the British will engage the Spanish and French in naval combat. The last few enemies are Phantom Memory 6, a scientific inquiry, and all these guys have valuable information about the voyage in the name of science. First, we've got the pickpocket. He steals the letter and will eventually get himself killed by some French troops. You can only fight him while he's berserk, and he's got a sword. The governor's messenger is up here doing an arm wrestling contest. While locked in combat, he has the same moves as an agile. You can't steal his knife, and he can only be killed by a counter kill. These two scientists chatting have swords and will fight you. You can also get a ton of them to chase you by running back and forth to the spot and interrupting the conversation. There's this one guy you tackle whom you let go, and you could beat up this merchant if you wanted to.
What do you want? Strange time to be delivering a message.
Of the day, the most stock at the lowest price.
Well, there you have it everyone, those were the enemy factions that you meet in Black Flag's Aveline and Freedom Cry DLC. I gotta say, I love both these two DLCs. Not only are the weapons, combat, and enemies great, but also you get to beat the snot out of American and French royal soldiers, Great Britain's arch-enemies. It changes the pacing a bit, considering that in Black Flag and in AC3 you mostly fight the British Redcoats due to most of the Templars being affiliated with them. The uniform designs of the enemies in Freedom Cry is also something I like. It gives us an idea that by the 1730s the European powers would start to change the design of military uniforms. Anywho, hope you all enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe, and as always, I will see you all in the next review. Don't worry, I'm working on a really good one next.
Hell of a view of the ocean.
It is. Do you like the ocean?
Yeah.
Someone help me!
That's Crest taken care of.
Got shot! Oh, no! God, no! No! The second?
That's the second keycard. Without these, the control unit is little more than a military-grade paperweight. Now it's just a matter of taking out Akka.